The cords felt cold against the skin of her wrists, an immediate, undeniable counterpoint to the rush of heat that had just consumed her. Her body was arched, vulnerable, and perfectly constrained upon the slate bench. The air, thick with the scent of aged stone and burning olive oil, crackled with anticipatory tension. Above her, the matriarch sat, a silhouette of crimson authority against the torchlight. Below, a 20-year-old woman's abdomen, the delicate center of her being, lay exposed a canvas for corrective ritual. The silence was broken by the faintest possible sound, the soft, teasing brush of a feather against the bare skin just above her navel. It was an intrusion both gentle and profoundly aggressive, signaling the beginning of the liturgy of laughter, a formalized method of purging adult defiance by achieving helpless physical surrender. This was not a punishment. It was the ritual stripping of arrogance from the air's spirit. Asterisk. The ancient manor of House Auric lay suspended in the deep, velvet stillness of the night, illuminated only by the immense, cold silver glow of a near full moon. The towering stone walls, built not merely for defense, but as a physical manifestation of lineage, loomed like the solemn faces of ancestral guardians. High above, the heavy, embroidered banners of the house-gold griffins on a field of deep sapphires stirred with a heavy, soft sigh in the cold night breeze. Auric was a place defined by its wealth and its profound, unbending lineage order. Inside, the torchlight, fed by highly scented oil, performed a restless dance along the cavernous main corridors, casting fluid, exaggerated shadows that elongated the carved support beams and distorted the painted historical tapestries. This was a structure where every stone, every artifact, demanded strict, unquestioning order, yet on this particular night, the order was breached. A slender, determined figure moved with an almost unnatural silence down a seldom used side passage. She was Lady Seraphina, the heir, a woman who had just crossed the threshold of 20 years of age, an adult, legally bound by the Auric Code of Conduct. She was restless, possessed of a dangerous, burgeoning pride, and infused with a rebellious spirit that found the house's rules, the endless, tedious strictures of grace, silence, and obedience, to be an intolerable cage. She was cloaked, her expensive dark hair concealed beneath the cowl, but beneath the rough wool she wore a magnificent gown of pale pink silk, a blatant violation of the midnight dressing protocol. Her movement was a continuous slide along the rough stone wall, maximizing shadow cover whenever the torch flames guttered. Her objective was absolute, to slip past the vigilant observation of her matriarch and escape the confines of the inner sanctum and the manor gates. The pink silk hem whispered softly against the cold stone floor as she successfully located and used a small, seldom guarded servant's door leading directly into the main courtyard. The outside air, crisp and carrying the complex scent of winter earth and ancient mortar, felt strangely, intoxicatingly alive. Seraphina smiled, a flash of pure, defiant satisfaction. For her, this nocturnal escape was not merely a physical act. It was a symbolic act of defiance against the constraints of her adult nobility. She paused, lingering near the enclosed midnight rose garden, inhaling the rich, heavy perfume of the blossoms, a sensuous contrast to the ascetic interior of the manor. She leaned forward, preparing to scout the road beyond the gates, but the violation was witnessed. From the deep shadow cast by the eastern wall of the courtyard, a pair of sharp, observant adult eyes followed her every move. Maid Alina, a woman of 30 years of age in the simple, regulation brown linen dress of the household staff, had seen the flicker of pink silk and recognized the silhouette immediately. Alina said nothing aloud. Instead, she turned on her heel and hurried inside, moving with the practiced efficiency of one who understood the hierarchy of authority. The matriarch, Lady Lyra sat in her solar chamber before a low, glowing fire, reviewing the next day's complex inventory and social schedule. She was an adult woman in her early 40s, wearing a severe gown of deep crimson velvet, the fabric reflecting her immense status. When maid Alina whispered her succinct, accurate report, Lady Lyra's eyes, the color of polished amber, narrowed instantly. Her magnificent golden hair, bound tightly up at crown with a simple circlet, gleamed sharply in the firelight as she slowly rose to her feet. The trap was laid. The consequence was now set in motion, awaiting only the inevitable return. Asterisk Seraphina returned an hour later, her heart still hammering with the lingering thrill of unearned freedom. She slipped back through the service door, the pink silk dress rustling like dry leaves. She pulled back her hood, releasing her long, dark hair to tumble down her back, but as she entered the great hall, the vast, silent space seemed to consume her defiance. She froze instantly. Waiting by the torchlit pillars, utterly still, stood her mother. Lady Lyra's arms were folded, her posture a perfect silent sentinel. Her eyes were sharp and unforgiving, and her crimson gown trailed across the cold stones like an advancing pool of dark warning. "Where have you been, Seraphina?" Lady Lyra asked, her voice quiet, controlled, but carrying the razor-sharp edge of a ceremonial blade. Seraphina swallowed, the heat of shame rising instantly in her cheeks. I only wished for air, my lady," she stammered, the excuse flimsy even to her own ears. "Air," the noblewoman repeated, the single word cutting deeper than any lash. "Does an adult daughter and heir of this house creep like a thief through midnight shadows, dressed in silk, with her honor exposed to the cold assessment of the night?" Seraphine's lips parted, an instinctive urge to protest. But her mother's unwavering, powerful gaze silenced the instinct immediately. "You have been formally warned before, Seraphina," Lady Lyra stated, her voice hardening with the weight of tradition. "Pride and disobedience are twins that must not be allowed to thrive in the heart of Oryx's heir. Tonight, you will be taught a lesson in humility that transcends mere words." She clapped her hands once a clean, decisive sound that echoed through the vast hall. Two senior maids, both adults, mid-30s, and highly practiced in their duties, entered immediately from a side chamber, their simple linen dresses swaying as they approached. Seraphine's eyes widened, recognizing the cold, inevitable finality of the process. "Mother, no. Please, I beg you. Anything but the Chamber of Chords." But the matriarch's voice rang like pure, unblemished iron. "Take her to the Chamber of Discipline. Tonight she shall know a ritual correction that will forge a necessary, permanent memory of her adult responsibility." The room they were taken to was located deep beneath the manor's foundations, a space specifically designated for the formal, adult administration of consequence. It was torchlit and austerely built, low ceilings, rough stone walls that absorbed all sound, creating an enclosed space that felt ancient and absolute. The furnishings were sparse but purposeful, a heavy, slightly angled wooden bench, several lengths of soft, braided cord, and thick iron rings set directly into the flagstone floor. Seraphine's pink, silk gown shimmered desperately in the flickering torchlight as the maids guided her forward. Her delicate silk slippers were slipped from her feet, and the cold, unforgiving stone of the floor kissed her toes, a startling, immediate contact with reality. She struggled, her long, dark hair spilling wildly over her shoulders. But the maids were practiced, firm, and entirely devoid of emotional reaction. With gentle but absolute firmness, they guided her to the bench. They secured her adult wrists above her head to the heavy rings, and secured her ankles to the rings at the foot of the bench, positioning her so she lay in a reclined, vulnerable position. The action caused the pink silk of her gown to pull slightly, drawing tight against her abdomen and deliberately exposing the sensitive area of her midsection. Lady Lyra entered last, her crimson velvet trailing majestically behind her. She seated herself upon a heavily carved chair, remaining regal and perfectly still. Her golden hair radiated authority in the torchlight. "My daughter," she said, her voice dropping to a low, chilling register. "Tonight you learn that nobility is not a careless privilege alone. It is an unyielding commitment to restraint, to honor, and to the authority of the house. You utilized your freedom to mock my structure. Now you will laugh until your pride shatters." Seraphina twisted violently against the cords. "Please, mother, anything but this. It is profoundly humiliating." "That, Seraphina," came the cold reply, "is the precise and necessary point." Lady Lyra gave a single, almost imperceptible nod to the maids. The belly button tickled. The first contact was a shocking intrusion of sensation. Maid Alina, kneeling at Seraphine's side, held an impossibly soft goose feather white against the exposed skin. She brushed it with deliberate, agonizing slowness across her daughter's bare midsection. Seraphina gasped, a sharp intake of air that instantly dissolved into a high-pitched, helpless giggle. Her abdomen muscles instantly tensed, recoiling from the unwanted touch, but the cords were absolute. "Stop!" She cried out between bursts of uncontrollable laughter. "It is foolish, absurd." The feather continued its ritualistic journey, finding its way to the most sensitive point, the indentation of her navel, circling, teasing, pressing ever so lightly into the sacred center of her body. Her laughter erupted, loud and desperate, echoing against the hard stone walls. The second maid, Maid Clara, also an adult, early 20s, joined the ritual, her fingers scribbling light, playful lines along Seraphine's ribs and flank, causing her to thrash wildly. Her long, dark hair flew about as her head shook violently from side to side, tears now tears of helpless, total laughter pricking her eyes. "Mother, please. I cannot bear the intensity," she shrieked. But Lady Lyra remained perfectly still, her eyes stern, her hands folded. "You will bear it until the memory of your place is permanently inscribed within you." Let her laugh. The torment continued, two feathers swirling simultaneously, one dipping into the sensitive navel cavity, while two sets of fingers teased and traced along her vulnerable sides. Seraphine's laughter morphed from squeals into hoarse, desperate cries, her body shimmering violently within the tight confines of her pink silk gown. Every frantic attempt to twist away only served to better position her core for the merciless attention. The breaking point, minutes, stretched into an eternity of sensory torture. Her physical strength waned. Her voice cracked into useless fragments. The maids, though exhausted, obeyed their matriarch's unyielding command. Lady Lyra occasionally lifted a hand, granting a brief, deceptive pause, only to order them to resume seconds later, ensuring the torment was maximized by the psychological anticipation that at last the ritual achieved its necessary goal. Seraphine's hysterical laughter finally collapsed into raw, heavy sobs. "Mother, I beg you, forgive my profound error. I will never violate the code of the house again." Her once defiant tone was utterly gone, replaced by a desperate, total humility. Her hair clung damply to her flushed face, streaked with tears. The pink silk gown was wrinkled and disheveled, the expensive fabric mocking her undone pride. Lady Lyra rose, her crimson velvet gown rippling like a wave of authority as she crossed the stone chamber. Her golden hair caught the torchlight like a crown of judgment. She placed a firm, heavy hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Remember this lesson, Seraphina," she said softly, but her tone was absolute. "You are not a common, base person to creep in shadows. You are my adult heir, and your honor is this entire family's honor. Forget this truth again, and the next lesson will be harsher still. Do you understand the contract?" The 20-year-old woman nodded weakly, whispering through ragged breaths. "Yes, mother." I swear it. I accept the full terms of the consequence. Asterisk, the maids immediately untied her, gently rubbing her wrists where the rough cords had pressed. Seraphina slumped forward, clutching the pink silk gown around her head bowed in total submission. For the first time since achieving her majority, she offered no argument, no protest, only silent. Genuine respect. Her mother studied her for a moment, then lifted her chin gently with a cool, steady hand. Good. Rise, child. You are noble only when you remember the absolute necessity of humility and restraint. Together, they ascended from the ancient chamber. Outside, the faint silver-pink glow of dawn was just touching the eastern horizon. The entire manor stirred with the quiet, orderly sound of servants beginning their daily work, a profound contrast to the chaos just ended. The young woman, humbled, exhausted, and profoundly marked, returned to her private chamber. As she lay upon her bed, the immediate painful memory of the laughter still echoed in her ribs, in her belly, and most profoundly in her navel, the sacred center where the ritual had been focused. She shivered, pulling the thick silk covers close. Knowing the liturgy of the feather and cord had forged a lesson that would remain permanent. And so, in the first light of the new morning, the house Oryx's adult honor stood restored, and the matriarch's symbolic justice had utterly prevailed.